and we see sports and organizations really shining a spotlight on how to create environments where girls feel really comfortable, where they can thrive, where they can feel like they can show up as girls as well as sporty or active people, then we're all over that, and that's something that's very close to our heart. My background is I worked in elite sport for a long time, for about 10 years in the Olympic and Paralympic programs as a sports scientist. But in that time, I very much started to focus on how well we supported our female athletes from a female perspective. And what that meant for me is, yes, we had this high performance system that was absolutely exceptional at preparing athletes for medal winning performances. But we were ignoring lots of things that happened exclusively in females or differently in females. And these tiles are kind of to show you the scope of what I was really interested in trying to bring into the high performance environment. And over the course of doing that, I realized that, gosh, if we'd been missing this stuff with people in some of the, most elite high performing environments in the world, of course, we were going to be missing all of this stuff when it came to acknowledging and supporting girls in sport, physical activity, right down the pathway to girls who want to enjoy sport, want to move their body, or who don't want to move their body. And we're trying to, encourage them to. How do we create these environments where girls can show up and really feel like they are celebrated for being a girl or a woman, as well as then supported with whatever sports or physical activities they want to do? So obviously today's session is really focused around kind of creating a period positive sporting environment, but I thought I'd flash all of these things up because often when we talk about girls in sport, it can be quite reductionist, and we can kind of get distracted into thinking, oh, it's just one thing that's important to them or a barrier to them. And obviously, as we know, there are loads of barriers or opportunities for girls to thrive in the sporting environment. And when it comes to looking after them, we need to consider all of these things, not just periods and menstrual cycles, as we're going to sort of touch on today. And like I said, these things happen exclusively in a female body or differently. So some of you will recognize that, having periods and having a menstrual cycle and developing breasts during puberty and needing a sports bra and breast support throughout the rest of your life is something that are things that happen only in girls' and women's bodies. However, nutrition, you might think that's not a very female-centric topic, Emma, because we all eat and we all have to eat, and actually eating for sport is its own kind of standalone topic. But we have to think about how girls view food, how girls view their body image, how girls are more likely to have dysfunctional relationships with food, how girls are more likely to restrict what they eat, to cut out whole food groups, how we're sold this, beauty standard that affects our relationship with nutrition. So that has a female element to it. We know that injury happens differently and more commonly in girls and women. After puberty, girls are up to 8 times more likely to suffer an ACL injury or a joint injury, twice as likely at other joints than their male counterparts. And there are loads of reasons, that contribute to this, but lots of them are specific to do with the fact that this person who's showing up in your sporting environment is female. And I could go on KIT and the life stages that girls and women go through, from puberty, starting their periods, breast developing, body shape changing, through pregnancy, postnatal, midlife, menopause, things like that. So we kind of are very committed to making sure that the sporting ecosystem looks after girls and women in a way that attends to, acknowledges and understands these things, and how they show up in that girl's life when they are showing up to sport. We believe that if we start to just embed and incorporate an understanding of these things into our sporting environments, then we can help girls feel like they truly belong there. That's really, really important, that sense of belonging. And I know that some of the young people that you work with, that's something you're probably really pushing for, is helping young people find a sense of belonging in the sporting environment, where sometimes it doesn't feel like it was made for them. So that's really important, particularly when we look at it through the female perspective. We know that attending to some of these topics help girls and women in sport stay healthy, whether that's physically or mentally healthy. We know that it can impact performance because that was where I first started, and how getting these things right can impact performance. and we know it's the right thing to do. It's the duty of care to make sure that we look after girls when they're with us, and we don't send them off, or they move on from our sport or physical activity kind of worse off, whether that's mentally worse off or physically worse off. So our job at the Well is to kind of help sports and help organisations attend to all of these pillars or points that really build up this environment where girls feel welcome and able to thrive. Next slide, please, Shana. So as I said, we are focusing on periods today, and I just thought I'd pick out a few athletes who haven't had a period positive experience. And whilst I've used athletes who are high performers, they're in the public eye, or they're in, Lionesses or Olympic Games, their stories are not unique to them. And everywhere we go, whether it's schools, whether it's sports clubs, whether it's grassroots Sunday morning sports clubs, whether it's park runs, the same issues are coming up time and time again for girls and women when it comes to being physically active, moving their bodies, engaging with sport, and coming up against the fact that the female experience hasn't been well understood, and the sporting environment doesn't feel like a place where they can talk about things like periods. Of these athletes, Ailish McColgan, top left there, and Jasmine Sawyers, top right, are both athletes who have spoken outwardly and openly about the fact that their period and understanding their menstrual cycle and its symptoms has been a real barrier to them achieving their goals. Jasmine Sawyers, the long jumper, got to the Rio Olympics, and as she arrived to do the first day of her qualifying round at the Olympic Games, she came on her period. Her period pain is always debilitating every month. And so instead of preparing for this sort of biggest platform of her life, she's on a doctor's couch saying, I need as much medication as you can give me that won't send me into, like a doping scandal. And she came home from that Olympic Games really, really frustrated, as you imagine, not just with the fact that she couldn't fulfill her potential, but that she had been in a sporting system where if she had brought forward a knee injury or a shoulder niggle, it wouldn't have been allowed to crop up every month and stop her doing what she needed to do without someone saying, should we really get to the bottom of that? She wouldn't have felt embarrassed to share a joint injury, but she was embarrassed to share the fact that period pain floored her every month. So we've got this system where things like periods are seen as a fragility. And when you are stepping into the sporting arena, whether it's to do, a recreational activity around a park, or whether it's to do the Olympic Games, you don't want to appear fragile or weak. And so often that stops girls bringing the topics of things like periods into the space. My argument, whenever I speak to girls and women, is that the fragility is not with them and their bodies and the fact that they have periods. Periods are the reason we're all here. Periods are amazing. They're an amazing sign of the fact that our body is healthy. And they are essential for our health as women, not just for our reproductive health, but our overall health. They're amazing. And the only fragility is in the system that has made us think that they should be silenced and dismissed and embarrassing. And that's the narrative we have to change. Other stories are things like the Lionesses asking to change their kit because their kit was white and they didn't want to be playing in a white kit in front of millions of people when they're on their period. That's an anxiety that you don't want to layer on to an athlete's performance. It's an anxiety that you don't want to layer on to a girl who's just trying to do PE in school or come to a club and thinking, oh gosh, I don't want to do that today because I have to wear that colour kit and my period might show. So I'm just not going to do it. We have to remove these very simple barriers. And then you've got some of the other athletes. Emma Pallant-Brown is in the middle. She leaked period blood while she was doing a long distance triathlon. The world being the triathlon world, went crazy because they were so offended that they saw period blood in her tri-suit. And she was just really brilliantly positive about the fact that she was running a long distance triathlon whilst on her period. Stopping and changing her product wasn't her priority. And if that's what happened, that's what happens. Everyone just move on. So we've got some positive voices in the space, but it's easy to see why it has been a taboo, stigma, embarrassing, and definitely something as girls go through puberty and start their periods, that it's not something they want to jump up and down with, joy about. That's my job to try and convince them that that's what they should do. But actually, pragmatically, what we should be doing is just creating this positive environment where if anything is showing up for them in relation to their period or their menstrual cycle, they feel like it won't be judged, it won't be criticized, it won't be dismissed or silenced or made an embarrassing topic. It will just be accepted as any other topic they might bring forward, when it comes to, how do I manage this and do the sport that I really want to do. Next slide, please, Shana. We know we're not there yet, because we know that for 42% of girls, periods stop them taking part in sport. Nearly half of girls are embarrassed by the fact that they have a period. 46% of teenage girls avoid exercise due to concerns about their breasts. And whilst breasts seem very different from periods, actually, one of the most common symptoms across the menstrual cycle in relation to the ebb and flow of the hormones in our body is breast soreness. And I've worked with so many athletes and girls who are sort of navigating their relationship with sport, who will say, on those days before my period where my breasts are sore, I won't do sport. I particularly won't do anything that, is impactful or increases breast bounce. And again, there are solutions like a brilliant sports bra that would remove that as a barrier, but we're not having these conversations. Lots of girls, up to half, miss school, they miss sport, and they often lie about why, when they're doing it, they won't want to say, I've got period pain, I feel really, really, down in the dumps, and I think it's because my period's about to arrive. They'll just make up an excuse. About 3/4 of girls have concerns about sports kit and uniform, and some of that's to do with body confidence and body shape and fit, but some of it's to do with colour and the anxiety that wearing certain types of kit, like tight kit, like revealing kit, like in gymnastics, or for example, or trampolining, or light coloured kit, or kit that will show a period pad. All of those things filter into the fact that if a girl's got her period and she's concerned about kit, it might be the thing that stops her showing up. And fear of judgment is a really, really significant barrier. And so when we say, oh, we're all going to speak about periods now, this is really great, we have to remember that like underneath all of these girls is like this fear that they're going to be judged or made to feel embarrassed. And so we have to create these environments which feel really psychologically safe and really nurturing, so they can bring that to the table if they need to. Next slide, please, Shana. I show this not to start a biology lesson with only about 3 minutes to go, but just to remind everyone that when you're dealing with girls in sport, girls and women, and you're thinking about periods and making your environment period positive, and I know that Martha is going to talk about FabLittleBags in a minute, which is just one brilliant way you can do that. We're not just talking about the part of the month where a girl has her period. We're talking about a whole monthly cycle that happens month on month on month on month on month, where hormones ebb and flow. And the only thing you need to take from this graph is that it looks like a roller coaster, and there are two hormones that go up and down. And those hormones have receptors all over our body, in our brain, in our gut, in our bone, in our heart, in our blood vessels. And they can affect how we feel physically, how we feel emotionally, how we feel socially, how we behave, how we communicate, whether we're more likely to take risks. All of those things can be affected by the different phases of the menstrual cycle. And so when you're dealing with girls in sport, you're not just dealing with them, it being period positive when they're on their period. You're dealing with the fact that you're helping them understand their experience of their menstrual cycle, the ebbs and flows of emotion and mood, and desire to be in a group dynamic and desire to be isolated, and helping them figure out whether some of those things are related to their hormones, and just understand their experience of it, which can be very empowering, rather than not knowing what the heck is going on as you enter puberty and start to get this cyclical, flow of different things. How can we make sport a place where we can help girls explore that experience? Next slide, please. Emma Wiggs was one of the first athletes that I started working with when I was in the high performance space, because she absolutely saw the opportunity here when it came to harnessing the power of her menstrual cycle and having conversations about periods. And the big message that we need to get out to all girls is that there is no part of your menstrual cycle, whether it's on your period or not, that you can't be the best you want to be. And again, whether that's just enjoying moving, whether that's enjoying being in a team environment, or whether that's doing a PB, your hormones don't directly affect your capability of doing that. But the symptoms you get across your menstrual cycle, whether it's pain, whether it's mood symptoms, whether it's lethargy and energy, whether it's nausea and not being able to eat properly. All of those things can obviously affect how motivated you are to show up and how you can perform whilst you're there. And Emma was just like a standout athlete who said, right, I'm taking all this information I'm learning about my cycle and I'm sharing it with my coach, and we are figuring out what I look like as like this menstrual cycling person. And it's not the only thing I consider as an athlete, it's just part of the puzzle. But now I have an extra bit of insight into myself. And they would work out that there were some days where they needed to communicate differently, some days where they might need to be flexible on the types of exercise that Emma was doing in the gym if she was in pain, for example, and they just used all this information as a real superpower. And that can filter right down into the recreational space, allowing girls to understand their experience of their menstrual cycle and not see it as a barrier. Next slide, please. So I think if I was to kind of set you all off on a mission without too much information, because we have the time to delve so deeply into it, I would say what we want to encourage the girls in our care, where they're coming to our sports clubs, our schools, our organizations, is to understand their experience of the menstrual cycle. And it's a very unique experience. There is no one blueprint. So it's encouraging girls to think about, what is my period like? Is it heavy? Is it long? How do I manage? What products do I use? What do I feel like in the days before my period? And start to really build a picture of what that is. That allows them to know they're normal. And then it allows them to also notice when that normal changes. And that can be really good insight into your health and your well-being. And it also allows you to see if there's any part of the menstrual cycle that is getting in the way of you enjoying or participating in sport. And then you're at choice. Do I try and do something about it? Because although we don't have time today to go into what those solutions are, there really are solutions to lots of things that happen in the menstrual cycle that we have normalized previously, but actually we can help girls with. Next slide, please. And we definitely need to get out of this kind of narrative that girls can't do sport when they're on their period. They absolutely can. And we all know that sport and movement, in whatever way we're doing it, is releasing endorphins. And endorphins are nature's painkillers and mood elevators, and they are shown to help with menstrual cycle symptoms and period symptoms. So the more we can shift this narrative into, I've got my period, I don't feel great, shall I just go and sort of like sit in front of the telly? No, actually, what could I do movement wise for the next 20 minutes or whatever it is that will then make me feel better? Like if that's our go-to rather than the duvet and the couch, that would be amazing. Next slide, please. Managing periods is such a tricky issue because we don't get taught about it. There's no kind of like rule book on how to do it, but it's so important because managing periods is like the barrier in terms of being able to do the things you need to do when you're on your period. And so helping girls explore the types of products that can work for them is really, really important, and having those open conversations and thinking about period wear that suits all of the people who are doing sport. So some period underwear manufacturers make period underwear for wheelchair users that are much easier to take on and off. You can also buy leak-proof sports kit. So if you've got girls who are sitting down and it feels like actually quite uncomfortable if they're wearing a pad, for example, but they're worried about their tampon leaking, you can get sports kit, which has just got some leak-proof technology in. And that just gives you an extra layer of protection. So thinking about the individual and then thinking about how she can best manage her period so it doesn't get in the way. I am nearly done, Shana, if you just scoot forward. There's swimwear now. So we know that lots of girls don't want to use tampons or can't get on with tampons or just can't, physically put them in for whatever reason. And that used to be a real barrier to girls being able to swim while they're on their period. But now you can get period swimwear. And so even just signposting girls within your clubs and organizations to the possibility can be really eye-opening. Next slide, please. And creating period positive environments, this is what it looks like. Having products where girls need them in the toilets, in the cubicles, and Martha will go on to speak about this. Looking at kit, making sure we haven't got white kit, we haven't got kit that feels exposing or revealing when someone's having their period. Making sure coaches or leaders or trainers feel confident to have open conversations about girls' periods and what they're experiencing, and making sure everyone in the sporting environment, whether that's people who are supporting the girls to exercise, they're, perhaps curating the physical environment, they're running the leisure centres or whatever, making sure they're aware of what the girls' needs are so that everyone's playing a really important role. Next slide, please. I'll just move on from this one, Shauna, because that was just about tracking the cycle, but we probably don't have time to go into that. There's a great resource for girls who say, oh, I've got loads of symptoms and I don't know what to do about them. You don't have to have the answers, but you can signpost on, and this is an online resource that can be really helpful. And I think probably the final slide. Yes. We need to be aware that girls have periods. We need to be open to acknowledging it. We need to educate everyone in the space about what that means and what we can do. We need to be open and positive in our communication, and we need to reserve any judgment or criticism or sort of embarrassment or shaming. And that will absolutely move us forward. If you want to know more, there's a QR code here and the next slide just to sign up to our newsletter, and you can check out our website and our socials. But I will pass over to Martha, I think, who I'm passing over to talk about the amazing product Fab Little Bags.
Thank you, Emma. Shauna, do you want me to go straight in, or?
Yeah, I was just going to jump in and say those kind of last few resources on Emma's slides I will include in the follow-up email. So the period tracker and the symptom checker and everything like that will be in an email. So we can, if you want to look into it in more detail, that'd be great. But thank you so much, Emma. That was amazing. And I'm going to hand over to Martha.
Thank you so much. I also want to plug their book, which is called can't believe you didn't mention this, Emma. the female
I'm so bad at promo, aren't I?
I know. This book, like, for any of you out there who just think, oh, Emma's talk has really kind of prompted some thought and some questions, and actually I'd really like to understand a bit more about this myself, that's kind of, it's funny enough called the Female Body Bible, and that's kind of it is what it says on the tin. So just want to say it's a revelation to a lot of women. It's not like just for men at all. It's for all of us to educate about our bodies, because we don't get taught it at school. So thanks to Emma. There's so much more to always say on this topic, but I'm going to focus more on kind of practicalities in many ways, because you're all practically involved with clubs, with girls, with women in your environments. And I feel like what kind of taking what Emma said and then adding to that, this is really, and we're all on this path together, is about creating welcoming environments for women and girls in sport. It's as simple as that. And because periods affect women and girls, we have to address this issue. And in fact, if you go on to the next slide, this was all driven, our work in sports as Fab Little Bag, and I'll come on, like, Fab Little Bag is a disposal bag for tampons and pads, and we'll come on to that later. But our work in sport was driven by the research, and the research that came out in, I think it was 2022 now, from Sports England and many other sporting bodies, reflected upon the reality that 64% of girls left sport, stopped playing sport, left the sport they love before the age of 17. And when you looked under the bonnet at why this was happening, there were many complex reasons. Teenage years are really complex and difficult anyway, but actually what kept coming up was trying to manage periods and the challenges that was having for people on a practical level in their sport. Think about it. You're in the middle of a football pitch, you're ready to go, and suddenly you get that feeling like, oh my God, my period's about to happen and I haven't got anything, and what am I going to do? And I'm going to leak, and I've got white shorts on, and oh my, I've got to ask the umpire if I can go, but where's the toilet? Oh, it's half a mile down that way. So there's all these terrible things that happen to girls in that moment. And this fear of leakage is another crucial factor that really is a negative in this space. So all this avoidance of playing sports, having terrible experiences where you're caught short or you leak through, that it's just so embarrassing when you're kind of a 14-year-old girl, let's say. This all contributes directly to thinking, oh, well, you know, I'm on my period, so I won't go to training this week, or I'll give that a miss. And then before you know it, you've missed 3. And then you're like, oh, well, there's no point, you know, I'll just forget about it. And I'd rather go out to the cinema with my girlfriends and, you know, not have to wash my hair, and like all these other factors come into play. So this fear of leakage, if you like, and all the practicalities has a really big impact in how we have to face the reality that women and girls are not staying in sport and not coming back to sport as much as they could and should be. So the next slide, I think. Our kind of mission in this space is that periods must not be a barrier to participation for women and girls playing sport they love. And that includes women coming back to sport, perhaps after a break involving that mad juggle of childcare and work and stuff. It's really hard to fit sport in, but then you can come back, and we want them to come back to a much more welcoming space, an inclusive space, than perhaps the space they left 15 years ago. So we looked at this, and after I kind of calmed down about all those stats, because it made me a bit furious as to what was happening. After I calmed down about that, I thought about it, and I thought, you know what? I can't solve all that problem of girls exodusing sport, but I can solve the period bit. I can do that because actually it's an easy fix. And I think we go to the next slide. The fix that we came up with was the coach's bag. There's a picture of it there. I've got one here. We can have a look at it afterwards if you like. It's a bag full of tampons, pads, and FabLittleBags for disposal. It's designed specifically for male coaches, actually, because most coaches in women's sports and girls' sports particular are still male. And we need to involve the coaches in this journey and in this mission of creating positive environments. So it needs to be something that they feel comfortable grabbing hold of and declaring its existence. So this is partly why, you know, it looks like it does. And it's a kind of 10 seconds of awkwardness situation where they can pick up the bag, say, okay, girls, here's the new period bag. It's got tampons, pads, and disposal bags in it for getting rid of them. It's always going to be here. It's always going to be full. Do not ask me, help yourself. And that's kind of all that needs to be said. And in that 10 seconds of kind of, let's face it, awkwardness for the coach and for the girls, what's happened is something quite wonderful and miraculous and impactful, which is the taboo has been broken. Because the coach, Gary, they're often called Gary, the coach has actually just said tampon and pad and period out loud for the first time, probably for them for the first time, and certainly in front of the girls for the first time. And so suddenly everyone knows that the girls have periods, and they know that Gary knows that they have periods, and that they've done something about it that's really helpful to them, that's really thoughtful to them, that's really impactful for them, because they know that now, next time they are in that caught short agony, or their friend Helen is always nicking their pads because she can't afford her own period products comfortably, she can go and help herself with no judgment and just manage her period just fine. So there's these ripple effect that happens from just this existence of and declaration of the coach's bag. So think of it like a first aid bag, but for periods, because that's effectively what it is. So this was our kind of very practical solution to this problem. And as you can see, I hope from what I've just said, yes, it's a bag full of product, but it's so much more than just a bag full of product. It's a declaration that we care about women and girls and how they feel in this space. We've thought about the fact you have periods and done something positive about it. And it's creating what we started with as our goal, our mutual goal from like Emma's perspective and our perspective of creating welcoming, inclusive environments. So yeah, so I hope that comes across well. Next slide. Fab Little Bag. I realize I haven't even shown you what one is, just so you know, because it's very innovative, so you might not have seen it before. And this is a disposal bag for tampons and pads. So you just drop your tampon in, or you get your pad from your underwear, you wrap it up, cover it with one piece of blue roll or the wrapper, put it in the bag, pull off the strip, push the bag together, completely sealed, opaque package full of the period product. You can't see in it, and it's completely sealed. So if, for example, there's no bin in the in the grubby toilets near the football pitch or whatever, it doesn't matter, because you can put this down your sock, you can put it in your own bag, rucksack. You're in control. You can deal with it as you see fit, at home or on the way home, or leave it on the floor, because it's still sealed and therefore hygienic. So that's what Fab Little Bags are, and that's how they completely change this space around managing periods in sports. Because, you know, so often you get this scenario where, well, there isn't really a nice toilet area, and there's no bin, and there's hardly any loo roll, and I'm just going to not change my product. I'm just going to just leave it in a bit extra and hope for the best. And that's when classically you leak through, etc., and it becomes a mortifying experience. So Fab plays a really important role in terms of giving that comfort and extra kind of confidence around managing your period, regardless of the facilities environment around you. Okay. So we created the period supportive movement across sports, because we wanted to very much empower coaches to be able to address this in a really positive, practical way that normalizes periods and just, you know, takes away from this taboo situation that we find ourselves in, even though it's 2025. We want to help create support for players just by creating the solution around the practicalities, taking away all that anxiety. So it's been a real game changer. And what we've created is we've got a kite mark, for example, that you can earn as a club, that Rachel will come and talk about in a minute. And we're creating an environment where it becomes much more normal to see and have period products when you're in that environment. So let's go on to the next slide, and I believe over to you, Rachel. You need to come off speaker. Silent.
Yeah, I know, I'm trying. Thank you, Martha. Hello, everybody. I'm Rachel. I work with Martha at Fab Little Bag, and I thought it'd be really helpful just to show you some of the organisations that we've been working with and how the kind of period supportive movement has been working, because it's all very well talking about these things, but actually practically how have we been working with clubs and sporting bodies and making the period supportive movement mean something. So next slide, please, Shanna. So just a little bit of background. We started, as Martha alluded to before, the Kite Mark accreditation scheme in 2023. And really this is a kind of a declaration that clubs are supporting women and girls, particularly managing their periods, but also in terms of including them in the club feeling proud that women and girls sections are there. And really a kind of statement, because clubs can use the period supportive logo on their websites, on their communications, and it really is a kind of a flag to the girls. Look, you know, this club really cares about you, and to women, we want you to join, we want you to participate, and we will help you manage your period if that happens to be you're in that kind of time of the month. This isn't something we're shying away from. And what clubs needed to do was to provide one of our coaches' bags, or we've got some dispensers which go into female cubicles and free period products in the toilets. to qualify as period supportive, because we have lots of different people we work with, from tiny little clubs with maybe only a small toilet, to bigger clubs with clubhouses and needing to put stuff in those actual individual cubicles. It's very flexible. You could just have one coach's bag and that is your intent and you qualify. And just below you can just see some of the people who were, these are our earliest clubs that came on board. We had Edinburgh Hockey Club, Scottish Hockey as a sporting body came on board, Moore Rugby Union Club, bless them, they were one of our early ones, and Norfolk FA. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to talk you through what we did with Hampshire Cricket. They launched as period supportive with their Women and Girls Expo in February 24. And this was very much bringing together different products to help girls play cricket in this case, kit, women and girls officers, club committee members, coaches. So it was a kind of networking opportunity to meet each other, talk about how they can be more inclusive to women and girls. It showcased products, it showcased learning, and it was where we actually declared them period supportive. So these clubs had all committed to our coaches' bags or our bags plus period products of their choice to be at their clubs and their venues. They received a certificate, Martha gave a speech, and it was a really motivating event where they could see in action what it means. And we had a wonderful reception there. There was one of the ladies in the picture who just said, I'm so proud my club has done this, because it's announcing that it really wants women and girls there. And it was just really powerful. And at the moment, 42 clubs to date across Hampshire County and counting have committed to be period supportive, which is absolutely wonderful. Next slide, please. This is another cricket one. This was Yorkshire Cricket. They're a very big county, as you know. Cricket is massive in Yorkshire. It's like a county kind of national sport. And they came out as period supportive. So we did a kind of campaign with them, as you can see here, across social media, because what we like to do is celebrate clubs and counties and organisations that come on board. So we do some social media activity with them and really try to signpost to those clubs and to those women and girls that this is happening. Next slide, please, Shanna. So Yorkshire Cricket Board were great. So they, different kind of sporting bodies and clubs do it different ways. This sporting body, Yorkshire Cricket, the clubs could request a coach's bag from them, which they got free of charge, and that started them on their period supportive journey. And then they then have to commit to keeping that bag topped up. Bigger clubs then additionally bought other things from us to help with the cubicles, maybe additional bags for away matches. An indoor cricket league came on board because they wanted the bags in the different kind of leisure centres they were in. So that was the way that Yorkshire did it, and had a kind of resource for everybody on their website. They also did an expo where they brought clubs together. Everybody had a talk about what was going on. Everybody was sharing. And that also worked really, really well. Next slide, please. And I just thought, Shanna asked me, because I'm actually, I coach tennis on a Saturday morning, and Shanna just said, what do you do, Rachel? And so I thought I'd share what I did. So I very much, when I'm coaching girls, adjust my tone of voice. Girls hate to be shouted at. So when I'm doing mixed groups with the head coach, there's quite a lot of shouting going on. When I do girls training or individuals, the tone of voice is completely different. So there's no shouting. There is lots of encouragement. Girls tend to think they can't do it, and I don't know why. It's a forehand. They can see the demonstration. The boys just kind of get on with it. The girls, quite a lot of self-doubt. And the difference when you encourage them, you say you can do it, and their face when they do it, absolutely amazing. So I would say lots of encouragement, lots of celebrating what they do well. I think sometimes as a coach, you look at the technical things and what people aren't doing well, but actually should be, and particularly with girls, what you're doing well. That was brilliant. I always kind of observe energy levels, because I know my players. There's one, Leanne's on this is lovely Leanne, who I coach on a Saturday. she's never going to tell me if she's on her period, you know, she's like 12. But I can observe, have her energy levels gone down? What's her body language? Is she tired? Is she moody? And then I'll just adjust the session, because I'm like, clearly there's something going on. We'll adjust the session. And sometimes they say, can you just not be such an intensive drill? And I'll go, yeah, absolutely fine. So flexibility, absolutely huge. And then the other thing for me is really the social aspect. Girls come to sports to be social, let them talk. So when the girls pick the balls up and we've done a drill, I always let them talk, probably longer than you'd normally have in a, this is how you should coach a tennis session. But for girls, coming together, doing something, moving, interacting with each other, it's friends outside of school, just absolutely key and important. And I thought I'd just end my section with Leanne having a little chat about how she feels about being supported at our tennis club, which is Tennis with Period Supportive.
I'm really hoping you can hear this. Hopefully this works. We go.
The sports period bags are really good, and I feel really supported by them, because then I know that if I do ever get my period at the club, I know that I will have like supplies.
Great, Leanne. And so how does that make you feel at, you know, the club, for the club? Do you think they care about their women and girls section?
Yeah, it makes me feel like they care a lot.
And do you like tennis?
Yeah.
Do you like to keep playing tennis?
Yeah, definitely.
And does having that kind of thing here help you continue to play tennis?
Yeah.
Thank you, Leanne. And is there a message you'd like to say to Martha, who founded the company, the Fab Little Bags?
Thank you for doing that. It makes me feel a lot more supported.
So there's Leanne, who's an absolute delight to coach, but I thought at least there's something there just so you can see like one of the girls and what they feel about the tennis club. So over back to you, Shanna. I think it's Martha, isn't it? Martha, are you next? If I miscued my slides there.
I think we've only got 2 seconds left, really.
I think there's just our sporting bodies that are ever growing, isn't there? So
Yeah.
I could just finish off. Here's just a list of all the people that are joining up, which is really exciting for us. Kind of a mixture of national sporting bodies, counties. We've got some great quotes from some of the Olympians. The Fab Little Bags were put into the Olympic bags, and we had some great feedback from performance athletes as well as grassroots athletes. So I think we're out of time now, Shanna, is that right?
Yeah, I'll just I think we're out of time. We're out of time. And the only other sides were like, you know, feedback and stuff, which is absolutely fine. But, you know, I just want to finish off by saying that this is about the grassroots. Or yes, it goes all the way up to the elite sports. We have loads of Olympians that love our Fab Little Bags, and they were a godsend when they were at the Olympics, etc. But you're working with your clubs at your grassroots level, and you know that's where it really has to start. This whole communication, this whole vibe really has to start there. So I just want to get across that actually you guys on this call are of crucial importance to the future when it comes to creating these welcoming environments for women and girls. So I just want you guys to take a moment and realize, you probably haven't realized just quite how important you are and the roles that you play. It's really crucial and impactful. So just realize that, and realize the power that you have to do amazing work in this space. And as Fab Little Bag, we're here to help you to achieve that.
Thanks, Martha, and thank you, Rachel, as well for sharing. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen so we can see everybody. If anyone's got any questions, please feel free to come off mute. But I'm going to kick us off because I know this was one question that came up quite a bit when we've had this conversation previously. Once a club has got their coach's bag and it's in their facility, how would you suggest that the best way to keep that topped up? And
yeah, that's a great question, because practicality is everything. You know, you need to know how do these things work, how do you do it. So on our website fablittlebag.com, we have a whole section specifically designed for sports and sports clubs and coaches. So you would simply set your account up on there and then hop on and order as and when you need to. but we also do not dictate what period products you put in the coach's bag. That is up to you. But we do have an organic brand of tampons and an organic brand of pads on our website to make it super simple particularly for the male coaches who perhaps don't want to stand in Sainsbury's on the aisle going, oh, hold on, how many drops was it? What color was it? Which bits do I need to get? If they just want to kind of go to the website and get what they know that is going to be great, then we have that on our website. But we're not here to dictate which brands you decide to put into your Fab Little Bag in terms of period products. But the short answer is, through our website, it's super simple. We also have a kind of a video guide on how to do it that we can share.
Thanks, Martha. Has anyone else got any questions? Now is the time to throw them in. If not, we're going to 5 minutes back for everyone.
And if you do have questions but not now, or it feels a bit shy now or whatever, then just channel them all through Shanna, and she can field them to Emma or to me or to Rachel, whatever, and we'll get back to you individually, because you know, I understand this also can be a kind of slightly weird topic to openly talk about for some people.
Oh, there's one just come in the chat. Let me have a look. The coaches tend to hold on to the bags or leave them in the club somewhere. They
hold on to them, Abby, because it's like a first aid bag for periods. So if you're going to hold on to your first aid bag and it's in the kit, it's in the bigger kit bag, that's exactly where these bags need to be. It's interesting, we got feedback from a rugby club who said that they have like 3 coaches bag for their home games, and they get them out and they put them right there on the touch line. And if it's not raining, they open them up and, like, you know, have a few things poking out so that there's no kind of bad thought about, oh, am I going to have to go and open it, you know, and go and put my hand in, you know. They kind of make it literally as accessible as possible, weather permitting. So yeah, and then if you do have a clubhouse, if you're lucky enough to have a building, then there are period companies that do little dispensers and stuff to hold the products, or you can even get, you know, your own bowl or whatever. And then we have our Fab Little Bag dispensers that go in the cubicle, and they just dispense Fab Little Bags one at a time through this, and these just sit next to the toilet roll holder in the cubicle. So it's just as visible and as easy and as normal as possible, because periods are normal and we need to normalize them.
Thanks, man. There's another one here. So is there a link for more information about the kite mark?
Sure. We will give you the link. Shana will send you the link to our website, which talks about all of that in the sports section.
Yeah, in the follow-up email, we're going to include all the resources that Emma shared, as well as links that Rachel and Martha have spoken about, and then also a code for everyone that's attended today's webinar to be able to get their own Fab Little Bag to be able to have at your club. So keep an eye out for that in your inbox. We'll be sharing as much information and offers as we can in that email. But yeah, any more questions before we sign off for today? Also, feel free to stay on if you've got a question that you'd rather ask directly with no one else on the call. We'll hang around for 5 minutes if anyone wants to ask anything, not in front of everyone else. But if that's all the questions for today, thank you so much for joining us, and really appreciate your time over your lunch. Please go and enjoy, if it's sunny where you are, go and enjoy a bit of sunshine, and I'll send that email out before the end of this week, and hopefully everyone can have their own Fab Little Bags in their club. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.